Welcome everyone to my review of Wildstar's 10-day open beta. As a player of other MMOs such as Guild Wars 2, I was extremely excited when I learned of this open beta for Wildstar and of the opportunity to get a feel for the game before pre-ordering. I'm going to try to review every aspect of the game as I experienced it, as well as items I hope are improved or fixed along with what I enjoyed. Coming from a recent game background of more mature art styles, I was a little hesitant when coming into Wildstar due to the obviously stylized appearance, but it has definitely grown on me as I've explored the game, and I hope you enjoy this review. Important dates to note include the continuing Ops Week days, the 3-day head start for those who have pre-ordered, and the release date of June 3rd. After logging in, the character select screen is visible. You can rotate or delete your character, select your other characters, or create a new character from this menu. At the top center of the screen, you can also pick your realm or server, although I wish it would have prompted me at the start, as I started to level on the wrong server. As you can see, I have 2 home servers at the moment. The reason for this is you cannot have Exile and Dominion characters on the same server if PvP. My friends and I have solved this issue for now by using the Oceanic PvP server for our Dominion characters. Just a note, you cannot add friends cross-server at this time, and I'm unsure if the server system will be the same at launch. As you can see, there are specific races for each faction, with Cassian, Draken, Chua, and Makari being available if Dominion, and Human, Granok, Orin, and Mordesh if in Exile. There are also 4 separate paths available: Soldier, Scientist, Settler, or Explorer, along with the 6 classes. The character menu allows pretty good customization, with many options being available and new options added by the devs by our request. I do wish there were more colors to choose from for eye, skin, and hair color, and I'd love to change my character's height, as I am definitely spoiled from games like Guild Wars 2. You can also export your character's appearance for later with the code provided when you click Save and Load Character, so I will be using many appearances from this beta. Once you've created your character, you'll be loaded into the respective starting zones and missions. The Dominion starting quests are definitely my favorite from the comedic stance, as casually electrocuting and burning people alive is always the way to go. There are several tutorials as you progress to help you get a grasp on the game, although when beginning, my picky nature and tiny hands required me to rekeybind almost all my keys to mirror what I've used in previous games. The list of possible keybinds is definitely daunting when you begin, and took me a bit to navigate. The UIs in this game need some polishing before official release, and thankfully the Wildstar crew have been constantly patching throughout the beta and made some definite improvements already. In general, making players more identifiable, as well as enemies, would be extremely beneficial, as unless you activate nameplates for friendlies, they can be missed and mine reset every time I logged on. Another thing I noticed was some odd window layering, as you can see with nameplate options and keybinds, as nameplates refused to appear on top of keybinds until I clicked it. A final thing was the location of the information boxes upon hovering above items. Skill info was a bit far in the corner of the screen, and sometimes hover would bug, providing the wrong information or none at all until revisiting. Moving on to the Maps UI, you can see that it's a little bit complicated. Vendors, party members, area names, area symbols, and zones can be seen by hovering and scrolling. An important aspect of the map are the quest objectives that can be seen with their area of effect. Since the start of beta, I believe there have been some alterations to make them more visible, but the overlap can be confusing, and the area of effect is absent from the smaller map in the top right corner. Trying to find party members on the main map and minimap is almost impossible to do without a lot of searching, as the icon for the party members changes from a white slow-loading and buggy dot to an alien face that blends in with the map. I also wish we had some markers for the entrances and exits of zones. The chatbox UI was the next UI I noticed that could be called beta-worthy, as there were a couple things that needed to be tweaked to be more user-friendly. For instance, whispering friends requires a fair bit of effort, and I'd love to be able to click outside of the chat box and interact with other UIs without having to delete or send my message first. The party UI was the next UI that I noticed was unique to Wildstar. There's a group leader who can adjust the party format and rules, as well as queue the party for PvP, adventures, or dungeons. This group leader also needs to accept requests for people to join or be kicked. One bug I did notice was that if I right-clicked on the name over the UI, I was unable to click the options provided and had to re-click more to the right. You can also invite players by selecting them and right-clicking them in social or open world. Another thing I noticed was there is no automatic function that dispersed parties after logging off and had to be done manually, but this is probably me being lazy. The social tab is a nice feature that lets you look at your guild, neighbors, contacts, and circles. You can browse the guild roster as well as guild perks. Just a note, during beta, guild membership was by character, not account. You can also manage circles, add neighbors for housing, and view your account and player friends. I do wish friends were just account-based, as it was difficult to communicate when they were on alts. The Quest UI is obviously a very important UI, and was decently understandable when starting the game. The scroll bar UI on the side has a list of your active follow quests, and they can be seen in detail by clicking their number. You can see path, challenge, and achievement details in this UI, as well as activate challenges when in range. The box below the scrolling UI shows path quests and can be minimized as well. Clicking the quest also pops up a very helpful directional arrow that shows your distance to the desired quest, making completion a lot easier, but does bug underground or when in caves. Another cool feature is the presence of quest exclamation points on enemy nameplates, making quest completion faster, and it lets you avoid unnecessary fights. If you hover over the enemy itself, the quest name will pop up with details. In PvP, the objectives replace the normal quests, although you can view all the quests if you want by expanding the UI. Where the path objectives usually are contain match details, in this case mask numbers for the 10v10 Walatiki Temple fight. Once opening your inventory, the first thing I noticed was how small it was. There's an arrow at the bottom that suggests you can expand the window, but I was unable to in beta. You can hover over and interact with items in your inventory by right-clicking, which either equips or uses said item, and also activates quest items. Pressing the wrench lets you see your equipped bags and your currency. You can also see what is salvageable and your crafting materials. Stemming from your inventory is your bank, which is accessible through locations in-game you can see on the map. You have additional slots after unlocking them, and use bags to determine their size. By looking on the map in the major cities, you can locate the auction house, the trading post, as well as guild storage and mailboxes. You can see current bids on items and search for what you need with the auction house, as well as sell or use the trading post for listing and buying items at a set price. With the trading post, you can see items to buy now, create buy orders, sell now, or create sell orders. The mailbox is how you pick up items from the trading post, as well as send and receive items and gold through mail. Nearby, you can also access the guild's bank, which has the guild's gold, storage permissions, and the log. Crafting in Wildstar is pretty straightforward. There are starter quests that were bugged at the beginning of beta, but now help you learn the basics. By clicking on the station, you can see your schematics and load them to create different items, inserting cores for stat bonuses with a % chance of failure being displayed. You can also see your tech tree for progression and talents for all your unlocked traits. The armor stylists in Thade and Ilium are how you can dye armor and equip costumes. You can drag costume items from your inventory into your costume sets, just to be sure to specify which set you are adding items to. You can then apply dyes to the costume pieces in the dye slot selected, although I wish there was a preview option to make this a little easier. Housing is one aspect of Wildstar that I love. Not only can you do almost anything you want to items, including making them ridiculously large like this chain, but you get bonuses for having more pieces in your house. If you want to edit, make sure edit mode is on by clicking the gears and seeing it highlighted. You can build whatever you want around your house as well. I've got a festival tier 1, which you can tailor to your trades or whatever you feel like. You can even edit your sky to things like rainbows, underwater, or the northern lights. You can activate a 24-hour bonus from your house as well that will help in PvP or open world. Mounts are yet another item in Wildstar that makes me extremely happy. As someone who has horses, being able to own a pony and travel faster was awesome. You can acquire a mount from Ilium or Thade at level 15 for 10G, a hoverboard at level 25, and up your riding skill at level 40 for increased movement speed. You can use your mount with the default Z, and after a couple seconds cast time, ride away into the sunset. If you've pre-ordered the deluxe edition, you get a hoverboard at the start. Taxi rides are one way to move around Nexus besides using the recall ability. Once you unlock a main taxi, you can go to previous taxis or to the main city if taxis along the path are also unlocked. Taxis remind me a bit of elevators in Mass Effect, but the dad jokes definitely help make up for the long wait time.
My sunroof's in the shop right now. The lock on it kept sticking, and somewhat tragically for my last fare, the ejector seat worked perfectly.
Oh, you leveled up. Way to go, Cupcake.
Combat in Wildstar is one thing that really did draw me to the game. The telegraphing helps make combat extremely smooth, and the dash and sprint gives you a lot of mobility. Skills either need focus or one of the class-specific resources to be used. These include power cores for medics, volatility for engineers, kinetic cells for warriors, suit power for stalkers, mana and psi points for esper, and spell surges and mana for spell slingers. Also, you can have 2 action sets with customized skill bar and AMP assortment, depending if you want to roll DPS, tank, or healer, and can swap between these 2 outside of combat. There are several types of attacks as well, including large stationary AoEs and several aim telegraphs that make combat extremely exciting and different on each class. At level 15, you can start a mini dungeon with several paths called an adventure. There are mini quests inside each path and several mini bosses along the way to the final boss. This is a great introduction to Wildstar's dungeon mechanics and is forgiving of the fact that the set roles of healer, tank, and DPS are not at their best due to lower level gear. The group votes on a path to follow a couple times throughout the adventure, which gives each adventure a bit of variety depending on the group. At the end of the adventure, final loot is awarded and player stats are displayed for the ability to stay alive, DPS, and heal. At level 20, the first dungeon, Stormtalon Lair, unlocks for exploration. The midway boss is by far the most difficult part of the dungeon, as he splits into several minions and knocks players back, forcing them to run through tornadoes and lightning flashes to continue fighting several times during the fight. The trinity of healer, tank, and DPS is more important at this higher level, as the bosses and telegraphs definitely do more damage. Just like the adventure, at the end of the dungeon, player stats and final loot are awarded. As I was on a PvP server, I had the unique opportunity of running into a level 30 Dominion character in Celestion. Thankfully, he was a pretty cool bro and decided to spare my level 17 self, and we bonded over our jumping abilities and ponies. As seen when viewing the quest UI, Walatiki Temple is one of the 10v10 formats available in Wildstar. It is accessible once you are level 6, and is a good warm-up to the Halls of Bloodsworn unlocked at level 15, which is what you can see now. The Halls of Bloodsworn changes things up from a modified capture the flag to a game of defense and point taking. Each team rotates from defense to offense once throughout the match, and whoever is able to defend and take points efficiently wins. Overall, I was definitely pleasantly surprised by Wildstar in this open beta, and I did end up pre-ordering the game. There were several bugs throughout the beta, but the Wildstar dev team has already made several changes. After creating another Chua for OpsWeek testing, I realized the map UI was completely redone and is now quite beautiful. The inventory sadly was not expandable, but my account friends are still in my contacts and the action set UI was redone as well. Some of the bugs during the open beta were quite amusing, like this rock dude and this sound glitch. Because it's melting my ears. This is going in the video. What happens when sound goes wrong in Wildstar? At the end of open beta, we were also treated to some large bosses in Thade, but unfortunately the servers and my frame died a horrible death. The rail stars that appeared everywhere were a nice touch though. I am quite excited for the head start and additional OpsWeek days that are currently underway, as Wildstar has proven to be a refreshing and comedic MMO with smooth combat and a lot of endgame content for all aspects of the game. I may be uploading further footage and reviews from the OpsWeek, so stay tuned to my channel for Wildstar content as well as my normal Guild Wars 2 uploads. I will also be using my Twitter to follow Wildstar's OpsWeek availability, which is linked in the description below.